Welcome to NEK-TV Rocks. My guest today is Judith Jackson. Judith, you're the provost of the Irasburg University.
I am.
Tell us more.
Well, during the month of April in Irasburg, we are holding a pop-up university called the University of Irasburg. And despite what you might have think, it really wasn't that complicated to set this up. The Board of Trustees of Irasburg's little Leach Public Library just transformed ourselves into the Board of Regents of the University of Irasburg, and that was that. The University of Irasburg was born.
That is great. How did you even come up with the idea? What was the thinking behind it?
Well, for many years, we've admired Bethel University. In the town of Bethel, every March, for the last 5 years, they've been holding BU, Bethel University. And we've admired their success and decided we'd like to try it in Irasburg. They do theirs in March, but of course Bethel is in the far deep south. And
right.
so probably spring comes there, probably spring comes in March. But here in the NEK, in April it's supposed to be spring.
That's
but
a joke.
But it never is. So we decided we would hold our University of Irasburg in April to give us something to keep us going until the snow melts. Although at this rate, we may have to run into May.
July.
So we modeled the University of Irasburg on Bethel's very successful program, which is based on the concept of neighbors teaching neighbors.
Right.
It's not, we don't bring in outside experts. We ask people in the Irasburg community who have particular skills or interests that they are willing to share with the rest of us. And it turns out that finding the distinguished faculty of the University of Irasburg was remarkably easy. People have so many talents and skills and things to teach us. And the rest of us are also eager to learn. That it was one of the easier organizational tasks that I've ever done. So we set up a website. We recruited our faculty. I think we decided that we'd start small. So we have this year, in our inaugural semester, our inaugural month, we're offering 15 courses. And we needed what every legitimate academic organization needed. Two things. We needed a Latin motto and a website. So Susie Piet, who is our webmaster for the Leach Public Library, created a wonderful website for us. You can find our website if you Google the Leach Public Library.
We'll put it on this.
That would be wonderful. And we came up with a Latin motto, Wikini Wikinos Docendi, which means neighbors teaching neighbors. At least that's what we think it means.
Neighbor to neighbor, yeah.
And that really expresses the philosophy that we have. And we held our first course on our first class last Saturday. Our campus for the U of I is around the Common in Irasburg. We have what we think is we're lucky to have at our village center really a handsome, iconic New England common.
That is such a wonderful
It is, it's great.
thing to have.
So we're holding classes in buildings around the Common. Some of them in our library itself, and for example, last night's class, which was a very successful class in how to cook a bear, took place in we have a big barn that we built a while ago that has a kitchen in it, and we had I guess about 20 folks
Did somebody bring bits of Teddy in?
No one, as far as I know, did.
Oh, God.
Everybody was but someone brought anyway. We have a neighbor who is a very skilled meat cutter. Yeah. And I believe he has so far this year dealt with upwards of 200 bear
Wow.
that people have brought him
Oh.
to deal with.
Yeah.
And so we all had an absolutely delicious bear stew. Last Saturday, Phyllis Mosher, who's our neighbor, who is the wife of the late and well-beloved Vermont author Howard Mosher.
Right.
Phyllis, for many years, taught elementary school science. So she taught a class in kitchen table science, science experiments for kids that they can do at home. And it was really exciting, especially the parts of Phyllis's course that dealt with fire. It was a big success.
I bet it was. Did you do that in the library?
We did that in the barn. After a while,
Fabulous barn.
in our fabulous barn.
Wow.
Oh yes, you've been to
What
our
a
barn,
resource
that's
that
right.
is.
It turns out to be
incredible.
really a good place to
Yeah.
hold to hold events like this.
Yes.
And it has a pretty well functioning kitchen, so we can
Right.
do our cooking classes there. This coming Saturday, we'll have a class in how to make snickerdoodles, taught by an 8th grader from Irasburg Village School, who learned to make snickerdoodles in our after-school enrichment program. The library sponsors a really successful. We've for 4 or 5 years sponsored a very successful after-school enrichment program, so that students from Irasburg Village School can learn how to make snickerdoodles.
Right.
They can learn pottery. They do mapping and
That's
outdoor
great.
adventures and so on. So we thought it was only fair, since this was successful, that we do something for the grown-ups as well.
And taught by a young person, which is
Taught
much
by
better.
a young person. Last Saturday in the library, we had a class in Irasburg history, which was fascinating. And this coming Sunday, Phyllis, who is doing yeoman's duty for the University of
I'm
Irasburg.
probably loving it.
Well, I hope so. She will be, Professor Mosher will be leading a session on Howard Frank Mosher and the Northeast Kingdom,
Well,
and
that's
his relationship
certainly a
to the
subject she knows
Northeast.
a lot about.
She does know a lot about, and it's a subject that attracts wide interest.
Yeah.
So I think we already have 25 people
Wow.
signed up for that.
So are you pulling from the wider area, or is this just for Irasburg residents?
Well, our primary focus is on the
Irasburg.
on Irasburg, but if someone wants to try to sneak in from Orleans, we're not going to throw
They'd be
them out.
allowed. You're not going to make them pay a fortune to come in.
No, in fact, that is one of the University of Irasburg's distinguishing features. Unlike some other institutions of higher learning in our country, you cannot bribe your way into the University of Irasburg. It just doesn't
That's
work.
really important information.
It is important.
I'm sure there would be people up here who would love to bribe their way in.
Well,
But
unfortunately,
you're not bribable.
all you have to do to get into the University of Irasburg is sign up and show up.
It's great.
And so far, I think we have 65 students, and I see a couple more folks interested in registering this morning. You can still register, although many of our classes are full.
Wow.
Our paint and sip, that filled up in about a day and a
I
half.
was going to say a minute and a half, didn't it?
Right.
You're doing that in your barn?
That's in the library, I believe.
The library has a liquor license.
Well, it turns out that the sip part is, no, the library doesn't have a liquor license.
Oh.
I know. And it turns out it's for adults and kids. So I
Oh.
believe the sipping
Oh.
refers to caffeinated beverages and juice.
That's as close as you can get then.
That's about as close.
Okay.
Although some sipping went on in our barn it turns out that the recommended wine pairing for bear is Burgundy or Merlot. So we tried our
You
best.
have to try, yeah.
We did. So we've been, as you can tell, we've been having enormous fun.
And you're planning on taking this forward into the future, I hope.
We are, although we're going to keep it, I think, confined to the month of April, a 1 month
Yeah.
pop-up university.
Yeah,
And people
not
have
make yourselves insane.
Right. We want to keep it, first of all, doable, so
Right.
it doesn't become, it stays fun.
Yes.
And always keep them coming back for more. We don't want anyone getting tired of the University of Irasburg.
And I would bet more and more people are going to say, oh, I could teach X. I make a really
They
good...
are. Exactly.
Yeah.
We have an expert sharpener. Guy runs a sharpening service, David Kennison.
yes.
Irasburg on Edge, it's called.
Huh.
And he has volunteered to
teach
a course on how to sharpen, which I think is going to be very
I need
successful.
to take that.
We all need to
Really
take that.
crappy as it.
We all have drawers full of dull knives. This is our chance.
Garden shears and things
Oh,
like that. There's nowhere to
absolutely.
take them.
And what do you do? Saws.
Yeah.
This could be even a 2-session course, I'm thinking.
When is this one?
This one will be in 2020. And by then, that will be our second year. And so once you do it twice, it's a tradition, right?
Right.
So Irasburg will be,
So I can't learn to sharpen my knife until 2:20.
I think you're just going to have to get by with those dull
Oh,
knives
dear.
for a little bit longer. Yes, we have all sorts of ideas for classes. We had one man volunteer from Glover to teach a course on handicapping horse races.
That would be fun, actually.
It would. This year
Yeah.
we're keeping our faculty local.
Yeah, but you could expand to Glover next
It's
time.
possible that we could.
Yeah.
That's right.
It's funny because as you started talking, I was thinking, I know 2 people who make the most amazing salsa. 2 different salsas, but they're fabulous.
Wouldn't that be fun?
Yeah.
Yes, the cooking classes are
Yeah.
cooking and art classes, really
Yes.
popular. We also have a class in learning to paint with acrylics
Mhm.
and a class on printmaking, which I think might have 1 or 2 spots left. But
Who's teaching that?
that is being taught by a mother-son team.
Nice.
Lucas Bittner is a 3rd grader, and his mother, Gretchen Bittner, is a very talented artist and
Yeah.
potter.
Yeah.
So they are teaming up to teach this
I love
class.
that you're getting kids involved.
Isn't that great?
Yeah, it really is.
It is.
'Cause it's so easy to blow kids off, and yet,
Or to keep things separate.
Yes.
This is for adults, this is for kids.
Yeah.
The University of Irasburg, any age, come
Everybody.
on in.
it is such a great idea.
Well, you can tell that we're having a lot of fun with it, but we do also have a serious purpose, a reason that motivated us to start it. We've really become convinced, and by we, I'm sort of speaking broadly of various people in Irasburg.
Mhm.
For my sins, I'm on the Irasburg Planning Commission.
I bet you are.
And we've been thinking a lot about planning for the future
Yeah.
and what makes a successful community now and in the years to come. And we've come to feel that the most important resource that a community has are the network of relationships, of trust and collaboration, cooperation among the people who live there. Living in a little town, I think we have 1,127 citizens in Irasburg, although our town clerk had a baby last
You
month,
just
so
upped the
we
number.
might be up to 1,128. So living in a little town like Irasburg, we recognize that there's so many factors that influence us, that have an effect on us, that we have no control over.
Right.
If we think about global markets and international trade and climate,
You
and
make yourself psychotic.
national and international politics,
Right.
all of these things have effects even on people like us, but
Yes.
there's very little we can do to
Right.
control them. And the quality of the future that we have in our success as a town is these relationships, the way we treat each other,
Building community.
and that we can influence.
Yes.
How we treat each other, that's up to us.
Right.
We can determine that. And what we find, and not just us, but lots of contemporary research finds, is that the more opportunities we have to do things together, to do
To engage
projects
each other.
together, to have fun together, to build things together, to learn together. The more opportunities there are, the stronger those relationships, those
Right.
bonds of cooperation and trust will become.
Then you have a town with a heartbeat,
We do.
a strong heartbeat,
And
and that's wonderful.
So that's our goal with this project of the University of Irasburg, is really to build this spirit of community that we think is going to be the biggest factor in the success of our town now and
Yes.
in the years to come.
Yes, and I think it's something that other towns are losing because they're so busy looking out and appointing themselves as experts and not looking in and saying, what do we already have? What can we build on here?
It's interesting that you say that, because here we are, little towns clustered around the
Yes.
Northeast Kingdom, around the state, and you might think that we're all the same. But what you find when you go into these towns is they have, each one has its own special personality and its own particular way of dealing not only with the events that come their way, but with each other, the way people treat each other within the town. So it's really up to each town to try to make that is the best it can be.
Yeah. It's a really powerful agent of change that you're creating, but it's not really about change. It's about supporting what you already have that's worth supporting, that can grow and blossom and feed all of you, metaphorically and literally.
That's right.
Snickerdoodles.
Snickerdoodles and bear
soup.
stew.
Yeah.
I know. So we are going to be holding every distinguished professor and every student at the University of Irasburg is invited to attend a special course on the 26th of April in how to carve a turkey. We have a lot of very skilled meat cutters and knife wielders in Irasburg, and
sharp knives too.
That's right, very sharp, and that turns out to be the key to carving. So our neighbor Margie Morley is going to teach us all how to carve a turkey, and then we're going to have a commencement turkey banquet. We don't have a commencement speaker yet.
I'm sure you'll come up with one.
I was thinking of inviting the governor. I don't know, maybe it's a little short notice, but on the other hand, maybe we should keep it in the community.
Oh, he's certainly not in the community, but it would actually do him good. He came to the legislative breakfast the other day.
Yes, I heard.
I think a little exposure to who we are up here would be really good.
Plus, get a great turkey dinner.
Yeah, invite him. You've got nothing to lose.
Well, maybe I will.
Why not?
Or maybe we'll get somebody from the 8th grade to give us our commencement.
That would be really cool.
It would. So we are, as I mentioned, writing in Irasburg our first ever town plan, and that has taught us so much about what's important to the people in Irasburg. The people in Irasburg really care about the features, the parts of our life as a community that made them move there in the first place. So the beauty of the surrounding, we think is gorgeous. We want to preserve our ridge lines, keep them keep them as beautiful as they already are.
How about stopping some of the big trucks that are rattling through your town on their way to the dump?
That is one of the bigger issues that we have to deal with in Irasburg. Every day about 20 of these trucks,
probably more,
go back and forth, at least 20.
Yes.
Right through the heart of our town.
Starting about 3 in the morning.
And that's right. And they really cut right through the heart of town and make what should be a unified town common where everybody can sort of gather around, just slice right through it.
Right.
And that is a big issue for us. Also, one of the things we have to think of in planning for the future is energy use. And everybody in Vermont is conscious of the fact that we have to find better ways to use, to conserve and use energy. If we're ever, not just for ourselves, but for the state and the planet and so on. And those heavily laden garbage trash trucks that rumble through town day after day after day are enormous users of energy. They're diesel fuel trucks. So we'd like to see a change there that would create some other destinations other than, as you know, the landfill in Coventry is the only landfill in the state of Vermont.
Yes.
And all of us pay the price for taking in the trash from the entire state and from outside
the state.
So yes, our town plan discusses that.
And your town is one of the ones that opposed the expansion, I believe.
We did.
Yeah, which those of us who live around here are very grateful for, because our town didn't.
Well, this is probably, as you know from your involvement in the dump movement, this is probably a long and a long struggle.
It's going to be a long struggle, yeah.
But you know, you have to start.
Absolutely.
And bringing people together is the way it happens. It's the way we were confronted in Irasburg with the prospect of 500-foot wind turbines on Kidder Hill, which is the ridge line that you can't miss it from anywhere in Irasburg.
Right.
And it would have changed the character of our town irreversibly. Would have made it into a different place. And the community came together, and overwhelmingly in 2015 in a vote. There were so many people voting that the fire marshal had to, we had to vote in shifts because there were more people in the town hall than the fire marshal would allow. But in the end, we voted 274 to 9 that we did not.
That was pretty clear.
It was fairly clear that we did not want to see these enormous wind turbines on a ridgeline. And so far, that was the start of an effort that has so far been successful. But we know that that we really need to pay attention.
Right.
Because these precious natural resources that we have, the landscape, this Vermont landscape that's really what brought us here.
Totally trashed.
Right. Needs all of us to pay attention and preserve it.
Yeah.
To keep our forests, preserve our agricultural lands, which is and at the same time, look for ways that we can conserve and use energy wisely and efficiently, and find ways to generate renewable energy in ways that respect our local environment.
Yeah. Irasburg has been one of the leaders in preventing what's happening with the schools too. You're such a small community, and yet you're strong and you're vocal, and you make very good points, and you make them in a very constructive way.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Which is really nice to see.
Well, Irasburg, again, we had another one of those votes.
Right.
About how we felt about merging our school into our Irasburg Village School into a 6-school overwhelming district. And we all voted that we wanted to keep our school. And it was quite disappointing when we learned that vote really didn't amount to anything and was not going to let us do that.
True. But it brought you together. And
well, it did.
It let you know that there was a community and you were like-minded, at least around that issue.
It did, Pam, and what it also taught us is the importance of transparency and outreach and really open communication among people in the community. I think one of the reasons we got into this situation where we were confronted with, unexpectedly, with the loss of our school, is that we didn't really have the opportunity to participate
Right.
in the decision making that went into the process of deciding what was going to happen with these schools.
Right.
Perhaps we could all have come to the conclusion, or many of us could have, that a school merger was a good thing, that merging schools was a good thing, but we didn't really have an opportunity to participate in making that decision until it was kind of sprung on us.
Right.
And by then it was
End of the line.
really too late. And it's, as you probably know, one of the biggest challenges in municipal government in small towns is finding ways to not only make it possible, but to get people to participate, to bring people into the process, not just at the end,
Right.
when it's kind of all done and
Right.
too late to do much, but into the actual decision-making, policy-making process. And it's easy if you are part of this process. For example, in the Planning Commission, it's easy to blame your fellow citizens for not showing up. But what I've come to realize living here, we're coming up on our 10th anniversary of moving to the NEK, is how very hard people in our communities work.
Right.
They have 2, 3 jobs. They're trying to raise their kids, earn a living, and maybe once in a while have a couple of hours to themselves. So really finding the time, the energy, and the commitment to take part in it is very challenging for so many of the folks who live around us. That old thing, moonlight in Vermont or starve to death.
Right.
And so many people are. And so I've come to the point where I think we really have to, it's incumbent on, if we want people to participate in city, town, municipal government, we have to find ways to make it seem like a thing they would want to do.
And share information as opposed to pulling it in.
Right. And really, it's such a cliche, but when we ask people what they think, really listening and
What a concept!
paying attention to what they tell us.
Right.
Even if it's not what we necessarily thought we would hear or what we necessarily wanted to hear.
Right.
So again, U of I, people accuse us of just being in it for the T-shirts. And
Well,
could
you
I
know,
turn around and,
Yeah, you have to
should
stand up, I think, for that, to have your back view.
There we go. There it goes. Got it, Todd? Perfect. Got it?
As I said, people accuse us of just being in this for the T-shirts, and we do
I
have
understand that.
great T-shirts. This is Ira Allen, by the way. And I should point out, another sort of rationale for the University of Irasburg. The University of Vermont was founded by who? Ira Allen. So it's only fair
That's right.
that we would have a university in his hometown.
You're absolutely right. Does the shirt come in other colors?
Baby steps for little feet, Pam. This is our first year, and
You could have a different color each year.
I think that, we may put you on the Board of Regents, because
But I don't live in Irasburg.
Well, as I said, we
It's
aren't that
flexible,
picky.
Flexible. Wow, you mean I could be a professor too?
Well, I'm the provost, so that post is
Power,
already
a position
taken.
of power.
But I'm sure we could find a dean of, how about dean of students?
Cool.
Every university needs that.
Everybody
right?
does. Sounds like a lot of fun.
It
really
is-
does. I'm joking
actually,
apart.
It
yeah.
is. It is enormous
How would you
fun.
feel about other towns borrowing or piggybacking on your idea and coming up with ways of doing something similar?
Oh, we think that's great. We, after all, piggybacked on Bethel. It took us
Of
5
course.
years to get off the ground.
And Bethel piggybacked on other communities that have done.
I'm sure they did.
Yeah.
I love the story of how Bethel University got started. They were looking for ways to do just the kind of things we've been talking about
Right.
this morning, to build community in the town of Bethel. And so they asked people to pass in their suggestions on pieces of paper at some meeting. And someone passed in a piece of paper that just said, "Be you." They had no idea what it meant, but they decided they interpreted it as Bethel University.
Perfect.
So that's how it got started.
Did they ever figure out what BU did mean?
I guess we now know. It meant
Bethel
Bethel
University.
University. And, you know, I think in this past year they had 55, they offered 55 classes and so on. So we still have something to shoot for.
This stuff really can take off.
It really
which is
can.
Wonderful.
It is. So we would love to see other communities do something similar. Each community's program will be unique.
Right.
It needs to be for that community. And we also just love the U of I. It just seems to roll off the tongue.
It does.
The University of Irasburg.
And if you can take additional credits in other towns too, I mean, this could really expand.
Well, that's interesting. Yes. Would your class work in West Glover, for example, count?
It should. It should.
You'd think so.
Yeah. I mean, how many credits do you ultimately need to graduate life?
Yes, indeed. It seems to be quite a few.
Yes.
And luckily we have opportunities to earn them every day.
Unfortunately, we're running out of our opportunities to talk anymore. It goes really fast. So thank you so much for coming in. Obviously, the information will be put on the site. You will get a copy of this that you can share as well, so that other people can learn about the U of I and learn about the T-shirt and the other opportunities that go with it. And in another year, come back and do this again.
I look forward to it. Thank you so much for the opportunity. And go U of I.
Definitely go U of I. You need a team and a cheerleader.
We need a fight song.
Yeah. You know, before you leave here and before they turn the camera off, Todd Pronto is a musician. Todd, who runs this studio.
There's a challenge for you, Todd.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.